Hey everyone, welcome back to OnBase. I'm your host, Chris Moody, and today I'm very excited to talk to Parth Mukherjee on customer-led go-to-market strategy. Parth, thanks for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited.
Yeah, well, I'm excited too, and I know you've had some very fun things to solve this week from us talking before we hit record, but we always like to start with everyone walking us through their journey. So what led you to what you're doing today?
Oh, well, that's a very deep question. That itself is a podcast, but I'll try and keep it short. I have been in tech for about 22 years now, started my career as a developer. When you study in India, a lot of people are either engineers or doctors back there. So I was one of the engineers. And so I started my career as a data warehouse engineer. So built a lot of data warehouses for DHL and BI, all that kind of interesting work. But then I knew I was always a creative storyteller. So I got a master's in business and then came back to tech as a marketer. And then been in tech marketing for 20 plus years now. Started in public companies like Adobe and Cognizant. And there, you're a marketer for one of the business units in a very large organization. So did that for a few years, learned a lot about large enterprise selling motions as well as PLG motions, got to dabble in both, which was exciting. And then at a certain point in my career, I thought I need to be in early stage startups. That's where the excitement is. So I went and became like a head of marketing CMO for early stage Series A, B startups. Was then again a VP of product marketing at one, a head of marketing at another. So that went on 5 successive VC backed startups. 4 of them exited. So really happy about that exit rate. And then this time around, when my ex-boss from my previous startup was moving to a PE-backed company, he needed a strong product marketing leader. So I landed here. And so now I'm at a PE company, which is in the 500 million to a billion sort of journey. So it's been an interesting journey. You start at these large multi-billion dollar companies, then go to a company that's growing from 0 to 1 million. And now I'm sort of rounding it off again with about 500 million to a billion. But they give you exposure to so many different kinds of go-to-market motions. So over the years, I've definitely experienced, I think, all the ranges from SMB sales all the way up to large enterprise sales, product-led motions, sales-led motions, marketing-led motions, everything. So at this point, really excited. Sovos is a great place. It's a tax compliance platform. I lead product marketing, corporate marketing, and also go-to-market strategy as under our CMO, Chris Lynch. So yeah, excited to talk more about what we do and what I've done in the past in terms of using the voice of the customer for go-to-market strategy.
That's outstanding. And I actually used to work with Chris Lynch and I just connected those dots. So
Oh,
that's incredible. We'll talk about that after we press record. Incredible person there.
yeah.
The background is awesome. That batting average is incredible, 4 of 5 exits, which is really, really strong. And the cool part, I love that you have product marketing and you're making sure that you pull in elements of the customer voices into go-to-market strategy. So how important are customer voices into shaping what drives market success in your go-to-market strategy?
Extremely important. And the way I had heard this somewhere and I really liked it and I really picked it up and I strongly believe in it. So whenever I go inherit or build a product marketing team, first thing I do is I always negotiate for go-to-market strategy to be in my job role and my team's role, because I think product marketing is a great organization that's suited to leading go-to-market strategy because we have an opportunity to be both close to the product as well as the customer. So I tell my PMM teams that the PMM's goal is to be the voice of the company in the market and, more importantly, the voice of the market in the company. Because more often than not, especially if you have an early stage startup, you are very founder driven, founder led. We have people who have strong convictions and points of view. Those are the personalities who make successful startup founders and CEOs. So a lot of those companies tend to be very driven by founder strategies and founder point of view or product points of view. what is very important is for the product marketing function or the go-to-market strategy function to operate the other way around, which is lean harder on the external sources of truth and bring that voice into the organization and educate the organization, including the CEO and the board, on this is what our customers are telling us. Here's the proof. And that's why we are recommending that we take this go-to-market strategy route or one or the other. So I think it's very important. It plays a massive role. I always, whenever I'm recruiting for a product marketing leader or a PMM, I'm looking for people who have experience and have skills in doing customer research, market research, building voice of customer programs. To answer the second part of your question, I think go-to-market strategy has 5 components according to me. And I see them as 5 different questions. It's who, what, why, where, and how. So the first one is who, like who is our target audience? Very simple question, but a very, very complex question to answer. You have to think about your ICPs, which industries, which personas, etc. So that's a very intensive process if you're starting from the scratch. The second part is what are the offerings we are going to take to the market? So what are your packages going to be? What is your pricing going to be? The third is why. Why should our buyers care? So that determines how you position yourself. What are the jobs to be done that you really solve for? What problems do you solve for these buyers? The fourth one is where. Where should we be selling? Where should we avoid selling, etc.? So you're thinking about your regions, your industries. And then finally, how do we reliably hit our targets? That's very much the operations side of go-to-market. Like, what are your goals? What should be the tactics? How do you generate leads? How do you organize your sales organization? How do you comp them? What's their sales plan? So it's a lot of like 5 different questions, but each of them, if you think about it deeply, the voice of the customer can strongly influence how you answer all those 5 questions.
That's great. And you rattled off the 5. That was really impressive. So nice work there. You mentioned jobs to be done, which I had a podcast episode 2 weeks ago where that was one of the big focal points that we had. But what are some of your favorite data collection and analysis methods to help make sure that you're getting that authentic voice and customer insights to shape your go-to-market decisions?
So there are multiple ways I've done this in the past, and we do here at Sovos as well. We're very, very thankful. And I used to be the head of product marketing for Chorus also. So I strongly believe in call recording and call intelligence and conversation intelligence technologies. I'm very thankful that we have them. So a majority of customer conversations are always being recorded, and it's a very acceptable thing in the B2B space now. So we have an enormous resource at our disposal there. People under-leverage that resource all day long, and I'm a strong evangelist for the right level of usage and the right way to use that resource. So firstly, that itself is a voice of customer program that's automatically running for you all day long. All you have to do is look for the right insights, collect those insights, and then use them effectively in your organization. So that's one resource. The other one, of course, those are more traditional market research methods that we've used to collect this data. It would be a combination of surveys, which you always do. Deep customer interviews, I think, are extremely effective, especially if you're doing them in the right stage of your life cycle. And then, of course, focus groups. Again, horses for courses. Some areas, focus groups work really well. In some areas, they don't. In terms of jobs to be done, I think the best method is either listening to those conversations that are already happening with your sales or customer success, or 2, just running very deep interviews with one persona one-on-one. I think that's a great way to discover jobs to be done.
Great stuff there. I love everything you mentioned. You hit on some quantitative elements there and some qualitative, which I love the point about listening to call recordings. We track marketer to marketer calls and we log all of our calls. So there's a lot of insights we gain from joining those and talking to folks. But how do you strike the balance between the quant and qual with the customer feedback to make it actionable for your go-to-market strategy?
That's a great question. There's unfortunately no perfect answer to that question. I think the easiest answer is it depends on the situation. I think there are some situations that where you can lean harder on the quantitative assessment. For example, in this region, is this problem really important or not? Should be a fairly easy quantitative problem to assess. Like if you send a survey to 1,000 of your job titles and ask a yes no question and you get an overwhelming response, there you don't really need any qualitative proof anymore. But there are several instances, and some of this works very well in pricing. For example, you're trying to assess share of wallet, you're trying to assess your competitors' price points. Very simple. Ask for the number, and then the average, mean, or median can give you a very clear idea of what you should be doing. I think there are other areas of go-to-market strategy. For example, what are the problems that we should be focused on as a company or a business? Or which of these have the biggest market opportunity for us? I think there you can do some data collection, but it's very important for, if it's the product marketing team, to then build out a story or a narrative based on that data point. Because the more interesting and compelling the narrative, the better the data point works for you as well. So I think it's a combination. And there are certain areas of go-to-market strategy where you have to really deploy the storytelling skill. For example, one of the areas we do that is win-loss analysis. So I've successfully deployed win-loss programs in every business I've been in. And I've used, interesting partners like Clue, Closed, who have always helped us in, deploying these programs. But that's an interesting area because you may interview 50 customers and then say, okay, 25% of them think your pricing is too high. But then when you look deeper at the data, they were either responding to a specific package that you had, which they thought was superfluous. There was some functionality they didn't really care for and didn't want to pay for, and so thought that you were overcharging. So I think doing that deep analysis and then telling a story is very important, because otherwise just looking at that number, you might think, okay, we need to drop our prices. But that's not true. What the story tells us is that you need to repackage, take some features out, or add a few more features which customers actually care about and still command the same price point. So you can have very different decisions and conclusions depending on whether you told the story right or not.
Yeah, let's pull on the story thread. I think this will involve a story. Stakeholder resistance. I know that I came up through product marketing amongst other functions similar to you, and I went through pragmatic marketing. Steve Johnson was my trainer, and his favorite coffee mug said, "Your opinion, although interesting, is irrelevant." How do you deal with strong opinions or assumptions about the market that may conflict with customer insights?
I think, I firstly love that coffee mug. I would love one if anybody's listening.
I know where to get them. I'll try to hook that up.
Thank you. But yeah, that's, aside from the joke, I think that's a very serious thing that product marketers especially have to deal with, because we probably are the most networked worker within a SaaS business. And as you well know, opinions and feedback can be of many different kinds and qualities. So we have to assess them and address them while not really affecting the stakeholder relationships that we have. So I think the one thing that has worked really well for me is proof. Like, hey, I'm not saying this. Here's the proof. And the way it has worked is we've used a lot of proof directly from clippings of either a chorus call that got recorded, and here's a customer saying that our pricing is way more than our competitors for unreasonable, for no good reason. And if you just send that clip, it becomes much easier to prove your point. This is not Parth or the product marketer saying this. This is this customer from this company, from this industry, with this job title saying it. So you're almost taking the blame out of the messenger and placing the message in front of the people. So that's one. Another way you could do this is you could go back into your data and showcase your data. For example, in our organization, we had certain preconceptions when I joined about why we win or lose deals. But when we went back into the opportunity data and did a deep analysis of use cases and the reasons for winning or losing, we found that a lot of that there was a mismatch. So what we did was we put the mismatch on a slide. Instead of just putting the new data on a slide, we put the mismatch. We said, so far, this is what we knew, and our CRM data is telling us this, or our chorus data is telling us this, and we highlighted the mismatch. So here's what we believe, wrong. This is what the data tells us. Here's what we believe, wrong. This is what the customer interview told us. So I think juxtaposition is a great way to dispel internal misconceptions using data and using external proof. So that has definitely worked for me in the past.
Yeah, I love that. I'm a huge believer in direct quotes too. To your point, when you can have your thoughts, but this is what one of our power users, here's their name, here's their picture, here's where they work. These are their exact words. Here's the audio clip if you'd like to listen to it. So I think that's really strong. When we think about reevaluating the customer voice data and how quickly that could potentially change, at what stages in the product lifecycle do you think that that's something that needs to happen?
So again, I think it needs to happen throughout the product life cycle, but again, in different measures and in different ways. I like to start as early as possible. So one of the things, we now at Sovos have a new chief product officer. We're working with her and her organization to establish some of these processes. But one of the things we really like to do is put together these product pods. This is something I've done again at multiple organizations, where product marketers and product managers work together to build what is called a product vision. So for each product line, have a long-term outlook. Don't just think of the roadmap for the next 6 or 12 months. Instead, think of a 5-year vision. So if the PM and PMM can articulate that vision, they can then take that to the market, do their research, and get feedback directly from customers on that, and use that to influence the vision. That's step one. From that, you extract your 6 or 12-month roadmap, and then you go to your existing customer base and you get feedback on that roadmap. And then finally, if you're thinking of a new product or a significant new capability, which would be a tier 1 or a tier 2 launch for your company, it's very important that you have people in the design phase, not just people who alpha test or beta test the product or the functionality, but people who actually help you design the functionality itself. And in any SaaS company, you have a riches of customers who are yelling down your CSMs, telling them, we need this, we need this. So when you're actually going to build it, you already have a great subset of people who are more than willing to be design partners with you. So it's very important that you use them when you're writing the PRD. You use them when you're designing the first wireframes. Get feedback. Don't wait for UAT. So I think I'm a huge believer in starting early. And of course, throughout the customer lifecycle, you're doing, NPS, you're doing other forms of customer advisory boards, you're getting feedback. But I think the earlier you start, the better you design your product and your feature, because they helped you design it or they helped you conceive of what functionality was needed in the first place. So I'm a huge believer in starting early. That's where I would focus 80% of my effort, so that the remaining 20% throughout the life cycle becomes much easier.
Great stuff. And you mentioned the 5-year vision. I'm going to pull that 5 years forward into the next question. What are the marketing trends that you're seeing that you're most excited about over the next 5 years?
Yeah, I thought about this deeply and I made some notes because I have so many thoughts and ideas. And if you ask my marketing peers, they will all say, Parth is like the ideas guy. He keeps coming up with ideas. And now there's like 20 different things to work on. But I believe that especially in the B2B marketing space, I think we are going to see more and more of customers who directly get in touch with us only when they are sales ready. So the richness of an inbound lead is actually going to diminish over the next few years. People who come and attend webinars and people who come and attend white papers, or download white papers, they're not going to be as valuable a lead for us moving forward. And there will be a lot of effort wasted in chasing those leads down, because more and more the buyer believes in self-education, and only when they are themselves band ready will they even get in touch with us. So all of those intent models will have diminishing returns, according to me. I think what we need is a different kind of model, an evolving model that actually captures the readiness of the buyer. And I know there's exciting work happening in that space, but I think that's one. I think we have to live in a very hyper personalized marketing world where we are driving tailored experiences. So when somebody is indeed educating themselves, ensure that there's educative content on your website. But when they're ready to make a decision, show them more compelling stuff. Right now, I don't think B2B websites do a great job of hyper personalization. There's some personalization, but it's very subliminal. It's not really very hyper personalized. The second one I'm excited about is prompts and prompt engine, what I call PEO, prompt engine optimization rather than search engine optimization, is going to become really big in the next couple of years. So a lot of websites and SEO strategies have to start adapting to people doing their searches on a GPT rather than a search engine. And also within search engines, things like Gemini that start providing answers and occupy 40% of the real estate. And then the third one, I know Chris Lynch is also very excited about this. He calls it allbound, and I really like the term. So I think one of the things we both believe is a lot of the ABM work has been very ABM, M in particular, because it has been very marketing led. And I think with the richness of the intent engines, where you can almost tell at a person level or at a persona level where the intent is coming from, I think now these tools will have significant adoption on the BDR and the sales side, so that you truly achieve the vision of joint account-based selling and account-based marketing. I think we both believe that this is going to become a reality this year. I know companies have been evangelizing that for a long time, but I think the end user adoption hasn't happened other than marketing. So I think the intent data being used across the go-to-market function will become a true reality in 2025. That's the hope.
I love that. And you mentioned PEO. This could be related, but what are a few of your favorite use cases of using AI for marketing?
So we have actually done a lot. We have, so let me think of all the ways. One, we've been using predictive analytics a lot, and that is a form of AI. So using that to predict where demand is coming from, which segments are working better or not, and where we can, forecast doing better in terms of pipeline and sales. That's definitely an area. Analyzing, like we discussed, like there's hundreds and thousands of calls getting recorded every day, but making sense of it using AI and, knowing exactly where your problems are or where your opportunities are. I think that's another area where we've used a lot of AI help to not have to listen to 1,000 calls, instead listen to just 20 that are best representative of the thing that you're seeking. Another, of course, very obvious one has been content optimization and, sort of improving drafts, personalizing the same draft for different kinds of campaigns, different regions, different industries. That's definitely an area where AI has been helping us. But I'm in particular really excited about how our buyers use AI when they are trying to discover somebody like us, and ensuring that we show up for them irrespective of where they are doing their research, whether that's a vendor comparison site, whether that's a search engine, or it's a GPT interface. It doesn't matter. We have to ensure that we show up. And that's going to be a huge battle for us, for any vendor in the next few years.
Great stuff, Parth. And what do you think is the biggest challenge in B2B marketing, if you had to pick one?
The biggest unsolved challenge has to be attribution. I think this is something we probably need to take a leaf out of the more consumer-focused businesses and the way they do it, with, of course, an understanding that our multi-touch is a very different multi-touch compared to a consumer multi-touch attribution. So I think that's been an area where I feel B2B companies still don't do a great job, and no one's to blame. There are data silos. There is a very limited understanding of multi-touch and the influence of all of those touches in a B2B cycle. And so it's difficult to land on a model. The data is not ready. And so in most organizations I've worked at, and I've spoken with 1,000 peers, everyone talks about the fact that that seems almost like the holy grail. I wish we could have a great answer for it. But a lot of people I talk to say, hey, you know what? We've given up. We're just doing last touch, and that's what we are reporting on. And we have a sense of our multi-touch, or we are saying, oh, we've taken a U shape instead and just looking at a combination of first and last. So there are people who are trying to sort of find a best fit path for themselves, but there's definitely not a perfect answer yet in B2B marketing.
Totally agree. That's come up on multiple calls today,
Oh,
actually.
really?
So, yeah, very well put there. What about favorite tools or technology? Do you have any that you recommend to everyone who listens?
Yes, absolutely. So we use a couple of things. Obviously, I used to be an ex-employee of Chorus, but any call recording technology is great. And I would make that a number one investment for any go-to-market leader. If you're joining a new organization, you have to ensure that's there because it has so many different use cases within the organization. It could be used for sales coaching. It could be used for market research. It could be used for product research. It could be used for customer feedback. There's so many ways in which you can use that thing. The number two and very important for us is we use Mindtickle. I was a Mindtickle employee before I joined here. But again, any technology that can provide deal rooms is very interesting for us in the B2B marketing space, especially if you're in an enterprise selling motion. That has been a technology that has not been leveraged a lot, has existed in CPQ systems for a long while. Nobody really used it other than for sending out the contract. But I think more and more as buyers take back a lot of the power in the buying cycle, it's very important that sellers are in a position to continue educating and influencing the buyer, even if you're not in a meeting with them, not face to face with them, not on a Zoom call with them, not on a phone call with them. That's probably 99% of your buying cycle. But give them a place where they can go ask their questions. People like interacting digitally. Send me a Slack, right? I wish I had a Slack with all of my buyers. I've heard reps say that so much. I think deal rooms give you that opportunity. We use Mindtickle's deal rooms. It's one of the best in the industry. And we see a significant difference in buyer engagement when a rep creates those deal rooms, and our win rates are much higher in those deals compared to deals where we don't. And then, of course, gamified learning is another interesting area in these LMS systems. And then finally, I think Clue. Clue has been great for us. I've used it thrice in my career so far. And Clue is great for competitive intel, but they also work on all our win-loss research. And all of that, competitors' intel, plus the intel we get from customers who we won with or lost with, is all assembled in the same place and becomes a battle card for our reps, becomes internal intel for our GTM leaders. So it's probably the third one I would name.
Great recommendations there. Everyone likes list of three too, so well played. What about good reads? What books, blogs, newsletters, or podcasts are top of mind for you?
Sure. To be very honest, I don't spend a lot of time on business books and business podcasts. Reading is a passion for me. I have actually written fiction novels also. So I read a lot of fiction. I'm currently reading The Three-Body Problem. I don't know if you've heard of it, but
Oh,
if you
yes.
like the science fiction genre, that's definitely a great recommendation. But in terms of ones I've read and really enjoyed, Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore. I think that was a great one on tech adoption and all of that. And then Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. Those two, I think I haven't read a ton, but those two I would absolutely recommend for anybody in go-to-market. Blogs, I really like HubSpot's blog. There's very good stuff both on the sales and marketing blogs there. And then, of course, Gartner, we are, of course, a Gartner seat holder. So we have access to a lot of their proprietary B2B insights and their blogs on go-to-market. So I use that a lot. Newsletters, the only ones I use is Marketing Brew. So I'm not a great user of newsletters, but that's definitely one I do. And then podcast marketing over coffee is one I've heard. And then a couple of the PMA podcasts as well on product marketing.
Great. And who inspires you in B2B? Who are the folks that you like to spend time with or look up to?
For sure. Like, I would be amiss if I didn't mention my CEO, Kevin. Kevin Ackroyd. He's been a multiple time CEO, has grown companies through massive growth phases in the hundreds of millions and billions of dollars, both at Cision, which he took public, and then Magnet. The reason I mention him is that, of course, I've worked for many CEOs, including Malcolm Frank at Cognizant, Shantanu at Adobe. I think I find Kevin very inspiring because he brings a clarity of vision to every meeting I've been with him, and he knows exactly what he wants. And he's also able to drive alignment with all of his key leaders, functional leaders. So they also know what they want. And this kind of alignment really makes our jobs much easier in middle management or for individual contributors, where the CEO is able to completely align all of his or her directs. Just makes the job easier for the rest of the organization. So Kevin does a marvelous job of that, and I find that really inspiring. Other than that, I've always been a fan of Anne Handley's content on marketing and messaging. Everybody Writes is a favorite. And then one of the others I would mention is Andy Raskin, another person who I found really, really useful. Heard a lot of his podcasts, read a lot of his blogs. I really like the idea around strategic narrative and using juxtaposition and a villain in your story. So I think that's another one I would highly recommend for folks.
Outstanding choices. So we will talk more about that too. Love those. And then the most important question of all, Parth, how can everyone get in touch with you after this podcast?
Super easy. Find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. You crushed it.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me, and really, really happy to be here.